um, and all of these things, not having the freedom to move as we were used to, also the fear of just knowing that it's such an invisible, subtle thing, the virus. It's not something that we can, visibly sense. And so it does create more uncertainty and fear. And so, in this current environment, we felt it was important for us just to begin to explore the impact of this on our mental health and well-being, because these additional stresses do have an impact on us. So this evening is going to be a conversation between myself and a very special friend, Vamla Play from Cape Town. And Vamla, just to give you a little bit of background on her, um, Vamla is a registered social worker and qualified with the BA Social Work Honours. She held a number of senior and leadership positions over the past 40 years in various social services organizations, including Boys Town, Cancer, Trauma Center, Center for Conflict Resolution, and I know even the mental health institution in Cape Town. But I think Vimla brings with a love for the community and a deep dedication to the community and well-being. So, Vimla, thank you for joining us this evening and being with us. I think it's wonderful that we can just draw on your many, many years of experience and expertise and passion for the community, because being in Cape Town, I know how much you sort of gave to the community. So, very, very warm welcome to you, Vamla.
Good evening, Pratibha, and good evening to the audience. And thank you for having me on your program.
Okay. So I think, Vamla, one of the key reasons why I thought it would be important for us to explore this whole subject of our well-being and particularly around mental health is because there's such a stigma around mental health. And I think if we just create safe spaces where we can talk about it, then maybe it will help to reduce the stigma and help us to move forward in some sense, in terms of getting the help that is needed. So I'd like to just open up this evening, just to let us just feel free to look at mental health and how can we sort of undo that stigma. If we can just normalize the whole aspect of it, maybe it will help people to be more open about it and then be able to take help more easily. Mm.
Sure. I think as you've touched on stigma, and attached to that is discrimination and the way we perceive people with emotional or mental health problems. Stigma is one of the biggest problems that patients and persons who are struggling emotionally, this is what they face. And this stigma and discrimination further isolates them and it intensifies their loneliness. So the way we as community members perceive them is of utmost importance. I think firstly, and you mentioned the word safe spaces, we need to feel comfortable to talk about mental health challenges as if we're talking about a headache. We need to normalize it to that extent so that the person who is suffering with any of these challenges will also feel comfortable and they will not further isolate themselves, or it won't intensify their loneliness and discrimination associated with that. We used to treat them as being not fit and not capable, but we need to look at them as being holistic individuals firstly, and as a whole being. They may have a disability or a challenge, which is just one aspect of them. So how we perceive them is of great importance. We need to see that whole being. And together with that whole being, we're looking at them as people with skills, with qualifications, with abilities, and to focus on those abilities in terms of what they can do rather than what they're not able to do. And I think one of the things about their biggest challenge as well is that because you cannot see it, if someone is highly stressed or someone is suffering with anxiety or even bipolar, you can't, it's not very visible. And because you can't see it, we often don't realize the anguish, the pain, and the suffering that they go through. So, my appeal is in order to swing this around and to change our perspectives on how we see them, we need to see them as whole beings. We need to understand that although their symptoms are not visible, like a broken arm or something, the anguish is quite deep and it's quite severe, and to offer support in that regard.
Just one aspect that comes into my mind, in a sense that in some way we all have the challenges around mental health. I mean, we all go through at various degrees, if I may put it, of unwellness regarding mental health aspects. And so it's not isolated to specific people in the community, but it's almost like if we can see that how it is something that we all can at some point or another face at various degrees, then maybe it will take away in some ways that kind of isolation around it.
You're absolutely right. I think most people suffer silently, partly because of stigma, and this impedes their going for treatment and continuing with treatment because people look down upon you and they maybe poke fun at you. And all this happens in terms of their own level of functioning and their own levels of consciousness. So it's very important for us to realize that this is more common than we think it is.
Mm.
And every, like, one and third person suffers with anxiety or depression or something, but not everybody is comfortable enough to talk about this. But like you creating a platform to address this, I think this is so important, because the more of this that happens, the more comfortable people will feel about this. Because many of us have gone through stress and trauma and have gone through tension, stress, anxiety, depression, and have gone for treatment and therapy, etc. So I'm glad you mentioned it's very important for people to realize it's much more common than we realize. Yeah.
I want to bring another element around this, and that is that, with the COVID pandemic and particularly the lockdown, where people were, forced to stay at home, stay in their family setups, etc. What we have noticed that it has in some ways intensified some of the issues that were already there. We've seen such a spate of gender-based violence, domestic violence, etc. It's not that these are new problems that have emerged. It's almost like they were there, but somehow the current environment intensified it more. It just um, erupted it in some ways, if I may put it like that. So is there a connection between the increase in stress and mental health? Does stress escalate issues of mental health?
You 100% correct. I think what you mentioned as well is it does exacerbate, it has aggravated whatever was existing. So it's just made it worse. It's made it a bigger problem. It's made it more difficult for people to function, let alone find these solutions. I think when you first mentioned this topic that we are going to be looking at, what came to mind was an old school story, A Tale of Two Cities. I think it was Charles Dickens who said, "This is the best of times and the worst of times." And that is so applicable to what is happening now. It is the best of times in so many ways because of the potential transformation, the awareness that is happening. But it's the worst of times because of this invisible, deadly virus that we're faced with. And there's no solutions, there's no vaccine. So there's too many unknowns, and that has exacerbated the anxiety, the fears around all of this. It has affected every aspect of our lives. If you're looking at your an individual self, your health problems are a challenge. Your families have been affected. Education has been affected. Finances have been affected. There are so many people without jobs these days, and it's not like it was this time even last year. And then I think worst of all is the gender-based violence, the homicides, and the worst one. And I think I cringe when I have to refer to this incident of this young lady, Sekofatso, I think, who was murdered, and she was 8 months pregnant. I mean, you have to be totally inhumane to have committed such an act. So there has been existing challenges in our society. There has been a lot of anger and frustration long before COVID-19, but COVID-19 has brought many new problems, and all this has intensified the situation that we found ourselves in. Internationally, we're looking at conflict and tension between the USA and the WHO. Then we had the George Floyd incident, and then the Black what was it?
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter, which should actually be all lives matter. But that was unrest on an international level. In South Africa, of great concern to all of us would be the political tensions, the unrest. People were on their knees begging for food. The frontline workers and health workers faced numerous problems. And, they're facing deadly risks. They had moral dilemmas, their workload stress, and on top of it all, the violence that has been occurring. But I think as much as the Director General of WHO pleaded for solidarity and cooperation, instead, there was a lot of conflict on various levels all over the world. And we need to spend time to have patience, take time to reflect as well on how to move forward and how we're going to look at some solutions. In terms of the health issues, I think the medical personnel are the experts and the best people to do so. But in terms of other aspects of what's happening, it's the people that need to conscientize and sit and really reflect and think about how do we move forward. And we'll speak about some of the coping mechanisms, because you have to feel okay first yourself, and then look at how do we meet the needs and the current needs, the challenging current needs of what we're all facing now. And it's not like you and I are talking about a topic that affects a group out there. You and I are part of this group. Both of us are also facing these challenges ourselves. But despite all of that, we are looking at how can we just help a few other people to just cope a little bit better.
It's almost asking.
One of the things. Oh, sorry, you go ahead.
You go ahead.
Okay, one of the things that's missing is connectedness, and this lack of connectedness and social distancing, not just physically, but from close family and friends. This has had a very, very high impact on a lot of people. And I'll talk a little bit about that when we are talking about how to look at coping mechanisms.
One of the things that I find is necessary is that often it isn't easy for people to recognize when help is needed. Because we were saying that some of the issues around mental health is something that is more common than we realize. And many times we see behavior and maybe a burst of anger or whatever the case, and we tend to just think of it, oh, it's just a bad moment, or it's just a person having a bad day, or they're just frustrated, etc. But I think there must be a point that we can begin to recognize when it's not just having a bad moment, but you actually need help. So, how can we educate ourselves better so that we become more conscious when we realize, hold on, this is going beyond what one would term as normal, and that it's okay to seek out help here. So be able to recognize it for oneself, but also I think how can we see the signs or things of that nature in our loved ones or family or friends, so that we can also assist them to take the help that's needed. Mm. So what's that fine line of recognizing when you think it's time to seek out help and it's not just normal behavior? Yeah.
Yeah, yes, it's very important. It's one of the things that one has to learn about in recognizing when am I feeling stressed, when is the stress level extremely high, am I feeling overwhelmed, am I not coping, am I going through burnout? And sometimes, and sadly so, the person that's experiencing it often can't see it themselves. So those around you also need to know, this person is not okay, and to bring attention to the fact that let me just talk around this and maybe something will come out. So a few years ago, I did put a slide together that lists all the signs and symptoms that people could use when it's trying to ask themselves, am I reaching breaking point? Am I burnt out? Am I stressed out? Do I need to go for help? So there is a slide, I think if we could just look at that.
I'll just open it up and you tell me which one it is. Yeah.
It's the colorful one with 4 columns in it.
Okay. Yeah.
No, not this one. It's the other.
This one here?
No. I think it's a Word document.
Oh, the Word document. Okay.
Yes.
Let me just get the Word document then. Sorry.
Would you
Okay,
like
you want
me
to
to
just carry on chatting and I'll look for the file quickly.
Would you like me to speak to it so long?
Yes, please do. I'll get it
Okay.
now.
All right. I think one needs to look at signs and symptoms on 4 levels. One always starts on a physical level. And when you're looking at yourself on a physical level, one looks at what is it that I'm experiencing in my body? What is my body telling me? Do I have headaches? Do I have do I grind my teeth? Do I constantly, are my jaws basically being locked? Is my heart pounding? Is my heart rate going very fast? Are my muscles tensed all the time? Am I not able to relax the muscles? Okay, here we have the slide, so we'll speak to it. So the people listening watching can also look at the slide. And if you would like to have access to this, let us know, because we could make this available. Okay. Could you put it a little bit higher, Pratibha, please?
Yeah, I'm trying. Yeah, sure. Okay.
There we are. Okay. On a physical level, we're looking at headaches, muscle pains, indigestion, constipation, diarrhea, perspiration, weight loss or gain, and changes in appetite. So I will read a few from the first column, and Pratibha will maybe read a few from the second column in terms of psychosocial symptoms.
Okay, so here we see that it's feelings of being anxious, irritable, sad or unhappy, being defensive, mood swings, being hypersensitive or apathetic, the racing mind, racing thoughts, feeling of helplessness, hopelessness, um, feeling trapped and unmotivated, isolation, restlessness, and exhaustion. Yeah.
In terms of cognitive functioning, and this refers to your thinking, your thought processes, one will notice that you have decreased attention. The perception is fairly narrow in terms of either your worldview or of life around you. A person goes through a lot of forgetfulness. Individuals are easily distracted. They're unable to find solutions to many of the challenges. And often they have an inability to learn, or they're struggling with learning. And Pratibha will also read the last one.
Okay, so here we see some of the behavioral symptoms, and one is overeating. How many of us do comfort eating? So it's an interesting thing. Loss of appetite, just disinterested in things. Increased use of alcohol or drugs, smoking, so your addictions get exacerbated. Being isolated, and I guess even isolating yourself
Yes.
when you begin to feel like that. Neglect of your responsibilities, changes in your relationships, poor work performance, over medicating yourself, prone to accidents, absenteeism, and poor sleep patterns.
Yeah. So basically, on different levels of an individual's functioning, if you see 4 or more of these symptoms that manifest, you need to ask yourself, do I need to go for help? What is it that I need to do to improve this and prevent it from getting worse?
Mm.
Thank you.
And I think when we talk about seeking out help, it's also important to begin to realize that sometimes there's a resistance to counseling and help on that level.
Yeah.
But maybe they are tools that one can begin to work with, and begin to offer oneself and practice, so that you can start as you see these symptoms, you can start then supporting yourself better, so that you can see you can overcome these symptoms basically. So let's maybe just talk a bit about some of the tools that we can explore and work through.
Okay. Is the slide going to be on?
I can switch it on here.
No, I don't. I'm over with the slide.
Yeah.
I'll just speak to the others.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. I think in terms of coping strategies and coping mechanisms, I have about maybe 10 points, but I'll list some, and then what's new in terms of alternate therapies and different modalities. I'll spend a little bit of time speaking about that, because that may be new for some. Okay, so in terms of just the basics on a physical level, everybody knows about the importance of exercise, the importance of yoga, the importance of breathing, because breathing in itself helps to calm you, it helps to relax you, it helps to reduce the heart rate. And of course, the magnificence of yoga and how that helps the body. But the essence of every physical activity is that it it helps the body produce what we call a cocktail of good chemicals. Because in mental health, I think, because it's a medical condition, the negative chemicals are produced, and there's a chemical imbalance, and one needs to correct that with medication. But with physical exercise, the body automatically produces this cocktail of good chemicals on its own. And some of these chemicals are like the endorphins and serotonin and I think oxytocin and one else. So on a physical level, you can produce these by yourself. On a mental and emotional level, I think one of the things that your center does magnificently well is help people to meditate. And that also relaxes, produces calmness. It reduces the thinking and focuses, when someone's doing their mantras, and hopefully all the other thoughts are parked aside and the body is allowed to focus on this mantra. I think spending time in nature is another very important thing, and everybody knows about the magnificent healing powers of nature, just spending time in the garden, in the park, by the river, or by the sea, and what it does for you. I send my friends pictures of birds and bees and butterflies and lizards on my lemon tree outside my kitchen window. I hope they don't get cut up. They haven't said so yet. But engaging with nature, it's like unbelievable, and I can sit and watch it for hours because it's so interesting, and all kinds of birds come and sit on the lemon tree. We planted that tree in memory of my late husband, and that blooms and blooms and hundreds of lemons all the time. But it has brought in all like a whole colony of little animals, and that gives, being in touch with that it's healing in itself. I think it's also very important for people to realize the importance of balance in their home, in their work life, in their social life. It's all being compromised at the moment, but under normal circumstances, the balance between home and family and your social life and spiritual life, very, very important, because spiritually, I think that's the foundation from which you operate. So if that is a firm, full foundation, that sense of emptiness won't be there. So it's very important to have that, because it does ground you. It gives you a base from which to function. And then about connectedness, I'm not, I'm a bit IT challenged. But in terms of connectedness, because we are so isolated from everybody, there's not even a wedding that can happen. You can't even go to a prayer in the temple. So in terms of that, what is happening is people are connecting via social media. I only use WhatsApp and email, and I have the telephone, which is fantastic for me, and that's where I limit myself. But people can also, they engage in Twitter and Facebook and all of that. But what keeps you mentally stimulated are talks like this, the webinars and Skype chats. I know a friend had a Zoom birthday party. So this is one way of keeping keeping connected with people. It's very, very important not to intensify your own isolation by not talking to people. Talking and your relationships are one of the most important resources and support systems you have. So you've got to keep that going. And then we speak about connecting with other people by serving your community. Even that is a bit restricted, but hundreds of people during the lockdown served food parcels to people, went out and assisted with, helped with frontline work. So this is one of the most gratifying ways you can ever engage with your community, by serving them and not expecting anything else in return. I think fun and laughter is another important factor. We need to laugh more and have more fun. A lot of us get so lost in our family responsibilities that we fail to, but it's very, very important to even get together talk nonsense if you want to. My friends and I do that. We laugh a lot, but that keeps you going. That also keeps the production of these good chemicals in your body. I think one of the very unrealistic things that comes about is people need to learn to be comfortable, to realize that it's okay to have a problem. It's very normal. You know, the struggle to keep up the image and appearances, that everything is so fine and all is well, it's not normal. And when you're putting up these appearances, it's quite challenging. It's quite a struggle. And subconsciously, it actually intensifies your
Yes.
anxiety and your problems. So we need to normalize even that. It's okay to have problems, but I'm not stuck there. I'm able to move on. I'm going to find solutions. And if I can't do it myself, I'm going to talk to people about it. And you move forward from there. And I think another important thing is with finding solutions, a lot of people impress upon you to be positive and ecstatic. My take on this is, if you're struggling and if you're experiencing severe stress and anxiety and depression, one of the challenges that you face is to be this highly positive person. My advice to people is to actually um, adopt a realistic attitude and be practical about it. Stop. And this is one of the things, together with the signs and symptoms you mentioned earlier, is to say, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm going through, and this is what I need to do about it. So it makes it a bit more achievable, a bit more reachable, especially for those who are struggling. And this is what I can do. So being practical and being realistic about situations, for me, is a better solution, a better option, especially if you are struggling on an emotional level. And then before I move on to the alternate therapies, I want to say that it's very common when people speak about an attitude of gratitude, to be grateful for what you have and be content. We need to be content with simple things and little things. We don't need more and more and more in terms of uh, buying the latest in terms of a car, etc., etc. And despite what's happening, we're still alive. We're here. We have a roof. We have food, and to be happy with that. Uh, uh, Penultimately, I want to say that one needs to look at hobbies and interests as well. Some of us do embroidery, we do gardening and sewing. I'm cooking and baking even more. I did a bit of embroidery. I'm starting to paint as well. So as much as you isolated, you have to keep mentally stimulated and you have to keep going. And these creative juices emerge and you need to utilize that. There's potential in you and to bring that out. So I'm impressing on people to think of what it is that you can do and go out and do it. It doesn't have to cost you money. And now I'd like to speak about the alternate therapies. Um, and this may be a new area for some, but we have been practicing other coping mechanisms. Like in social work, we do a lot of counseling. The psychotherapists do counseling as well. And previously, there used to be what was called the medical model, where you only looked at looking at healing and transformation from a medical perspective. Fortunately, over the last few years, this has changed to a socio-developmental model where we're looking at other therapies. It's a more holistic view on what is there that will really help people. So as much as counseling may help some, healing in other ways will help many of the others. And put it all together with meditation and yoga, it's a very beautiful package that one can put together to assist people. So one of the healing techniques that I've learned since the early 90s was something called Capacita International. I trained under Dr. Patricia Mathis Kane from the USA. She went to all these ancient countries, Guatemala, Nicaragua, India, China, and she learned about all the ancient techniques, all the therapeutic modalities, and she packaged that into what she calls Capacita. And this is a healing and transformational way that we all train to do and work with various mind-body healing, and where a lot of touch therapy is used. But we're going to look at that just now, but on a self-care model, on an individual basis for yourself, one can look at the massaging, doing reflexology on yourself. We all get spoiled by going to a reflexology or a massage therapist, but when you're on your own, you can do your own reflexology. One of the things under Capacita International is the handholds, where if I'm a practitioner and I have trained, and I'm a trainer as well, where you do healing touches on individuals. And these are the magnificent part of this is that these are ancient techniques. Our grandmothers even used these techniques, which we didn't quite take cognizance of, but they're very, very powerful techniques. You do the hand holds, you do the head holds, and this offers a lot of comfort, because while doing this on people, the grace and the energy from the healer gets transferred onto the person receiving this. And another technique that we use in terms of Capacita International is the emotional freedom technique, commonly known as EFT, where we do tapping and various things. And one measures, this is how I'm feeling before the exercise, out of 10, maybe a 9 out of 10. And after you do this exercise, you measure how you're feeling. So it may come down to a 5 or a 6. So you have instant impact from these exercises. So you may have seen a video that's been going around recently about tapping your hands and clapping your hands and tapping this. So that tapping technique is also a very common thing. What you're basically doing with all these techniques, and I can't demonstrate because I don't have somebody here to demonstrate on, you've got to demonstrate on that. But what you're doing is you're activating the energies, you're allowing, in your hands and in your feet are the nerve endings, and these nerves are connected to various organs. So you're activating the functioning of the organs. And when we massage you, we massage out your tensions, and we massage and help you to release those, the pain, the anxiety, the stress levels. So we actually physically help to remove that. And then we had another very, very, very powerful technique called the trauma release exercises. This was something developed by Dr. David Berceli, and he worked a lot in war zones and worked with prisoners of war. And once when he was in the war zone, he noticed a cat, the animals, when they heard the bomb blast, yes, they started to quiver. And then he observed that, and then he went and looked into this. What is it that's causing them to quiver? And I don't know how much time we have, Pratibha.
We should round up here.
Can I finish that? Okay. What is causing them to quiver? And then he discovered that at the back of our lower back is a muscle called the psoas muscle, and this is activated and it quivers. And the quivering is part of a very natural response to fear and to trauma. So he now packaged that into an exceptional training manual, and he's teaching this all over, where people, whereas we were previously conditioned to stop, if you start shaking, the automatic response from people around you says, don't do that, because it's not socially acceptable. But the release of intense trauma and pain happens when your body is activated, the psoas muscle is activated, and your body is allowed to release. The amazing thing about Capacita, and my last sentence on this section, And if people want to ask questions, they're welcome to do so.
Yeah, I'd like to
The
give space
amazing
for
part, amazing part of both capacitor and the trauma release exercises is that it suppresses the thinking inside of you, and it allows the body to heal. For example, if you get cut, you don't go there every day, open your plaster and say, cut, you must get better, you must get better. The cut heals on its own. And the body has its own capacity to heal on its own with certain ailments. So these practices, there's quite a range which I can't cover all now, but allows the body to take over. And thinking is usually an impediment. So it suppresses that, and it allows the body to actually do its work. Okay.
Okay.
I'll
Thanks,
stop
Bhavna.
here,
That was quite a variety. But I think, in essence, when I think about approaches and methods, one thing, it feels like it's very important not to suppress what we're feeling. Because I think, many times we sort of conditioned in thinking this is not the way I'm supposed to be feeling, or this is not the way I'm supposed to be thinking. And so instead of really finding a healthy way of working it out of the system, people tend to suppress it. And I think that's when you tend to find that you end up resorting to eating or your addictions, or that kind of a behavior.
Absolutely.
So, but the other aspect that I also feel is important is that there's many methods and approaches. One needs to see what works for each one, because for each one it's a different thing.
Different, absolutely.
For example, the sister that I used to live with, Deepti, for her, when she really wanted to just relax and connect and just be free, she would dance. For her, dancing was the thing.
Absolutely. Yes, I forgot to mention.
And so, yeah, and this quite an interesting research that I came across that actually shows that how movement has such an impact on the kind of emotion and feeling it triggers. So, for example, if you just make your hand into a fist, it's almost like the messages from the fist sends a signal to the brain, and automatically it creates a sense of tension internally. So therefore, you find things like qigong, tai chi, dance, etc., are slow, open, relaxing movements, which naturally then stimulate that in the brain as well. So movement and the correct movement and seeing what works for one is good. And I also feel that this element that you brought up, which is important, and that is, one of the things that has happened in our modern day living is that we are overstimulated. So whether it's through social media or movies or whatever, and because we're being fed so much, that we've become lazy internally, and I think that has a huge impact in terms of our mental well-being, because one of the things that really creates a sense of fulfillment and wellness is when I'm being creative.
Absolutely.
So whether it's like yourself in the kitchen and trying out new recipes, or whether it's just adult coloring has become a big thing as well. So whether it's
I do that too. It's wonderful.
yeah, or painting, or just decorating flowers into a vase, or beading or whatever. But it's somehow, or writing. I think even just being creative with my mind is so important. Generating something from within is vital, because as much as there's the opportunity of being supported through social media and all of that, unless I'm creating something from inside, there isn't the real sense of fulfillment.
Exactly.
And I think it
Exactly.
has a huge
Yeah.
impact on wellness. I think what I'd like to do now is leave a bit of space open if people have questions. Anyone who's listening and have a particular question, you're welcome to write it on the chat, or you could unmute yourself and ask the question. So we'd just like to open it up to a few questions now. Anyone?
Thank you very much for the privilege to be part of the conversation. It's coming at an appropriate time. I don't think I really have a question except to express gratitude for being continuously equipped and assisted with a coping mechanism. I think I live with someone who is having mental health issues. And in fact, it has dawned to me to say we all have mental health issues, including myself. I think that realization came very clear and true for me now during this lockdown, when I'm normally a physically very active person. And I think adapting to change became a big, big, big challenge for me. And I'm normally diligently exercising. And when lockdown started, I was able to continue to do that. But I think as we've been approaching winter, I've been realizing that it is such a drag to get up. It is such a struggle, to do a simple yoga exercise. And I'm so grateful for the morning meditation sessions and the talks. And I think if this facility was not available, I don't think I would have been able to cope and be where I am right now. So it is ready to express sincere, I think, gratitude, because there's been more days before when one feels trapped, when one feels helpless and hopeless. And now, at least listening to the session today and many other sessions that I've listened to, I feel better equipped to stop feeling sorry and to actually unleash the energy that I have in being useful to other people who may be in worse situations and conditions. I'm still privileged. I can do a webinar. Other people don't have access to technology. They don't have data, So yeah, really, it is to say thank you. I feel I can breathe. Thank you so much.
I think one thing that you said, which highlights an important element, and Vamla, you can maybe just share on that as well, is that it's very important to have structure. I think one of the challenges of what lockdown has had is that where we had a structure, we're going to work and all of that, now we're at home, and when you don't have, or when you don't create your own structure within the home, within your environment, then it's very easy to slip into feeling useless, feeling unproductive, feeling bored, feeling empty in a sense. So I know just creating a structure for yourself, whether it's saying, okay, in the morning I'm going to do so and so, or I'm going to spend so much of time in the garden when it's like 10 o'clock, when it's warmer or whatever, but you have to almost like create a structure for yourself that gets your energy moving then, and you feel more constructive. Am I right, Vamla?
Yes, I think when thinking about this, I came up with something which I call the 6 R's and the 3 A's. And this speaks to, developing some structure. When it comes to the 6 R's, I thought about, firstly, taking responsibility for what is for your life, firstly, and the family. Secondly, to become aware of signs and symptoms, which we spoke about earlier. Thirdly, we also need to know how to reinvent and recreate ourselves, and then to respond appropriately to various situations, to reframe problems as well. And finally, the sixth R is resources, to become familiar with the resource. And the 3 A's which people should remember is, we need to learn now. It's a changing environment. We need to learn to adapt, to accept what we can't change, and to make those adjustments. For example, develop a new structured way of coping with this interim lockdown period.
Mm. Okay, great. Let's see, there's questions on the chat. Okay, someone's asking, where can one do the capacitor international course? Yeah. I'll get the information from Vimla and then we'll send it through to you. It's from Anne. Okay, anyone else would like to ask a question or two?
Yes, thank you, Pratibha. And thank you, Vimla, for that informative information. I just wanted to check the alternative therapies that you mentioned was very good. And with regards to the counseling and the psychotherapy and the modalities, is there a cost attached to it? Because especially in these times when clients have challenges with finances, so then what happens when they are financially challenged?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because it will be applicable to a lot of people. And it's something we have to be very, very conscious about. Access to resources. Of course, if you have medical aid, you have access to private psychiatrists, private psychologists. And if you don't, you have the local clinic or the provincial hospital. But access to these kinds of workshops, many of them do have a cost attached to it. But, one needs to speak about your circumstances and your situation. And, people can run these workshops. I'm happy to run one post COVID-19 if time allows that. But there are also NGOs, for example, Cape Mental Health, and various other NGOs in the community where you don't have to pay for these services, where counseling can be offered at no cost to the person. And one needs to look up these resources. I could leave a list of some of the resources with Pratibha, and you can access these resources on your own or call us.
There is a slide. Do you want me to put that up, Vimla?
That would be good, Pratibha.
Yeah, thank you, Vimla.
You're welcome.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah.
I think it's the last slide.
Yeah, here's it.
Yeah, some of the resources are mentioned in this slide, and you have access to this. Just let us know if you need this. So some of the resources one could access is the mental health organizations. SADAG is a very popular organization. That's the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, and their numbers there. We have Lifeline, we have Childline, we have Gender-Based Violence and Femicide Hotline. There's also, with the deaths and most recently, the manner in which people are dying, one needs to also get support when you are experiencing loss through death, and you can contact compassionate friends. You also have to have your own list of family and friends, people that you could say, I can phone and just have a chat with this person. What's also of importance is to access your own spiritual counselor or your priest, and have a list of emergency numbers. But the difficulty here is each province will have their own resources and with their own local telephone numbers. But these are just the hotlines that's accessible to people all over. So from anywhere, you can call these numbers, and more than happy we are to share this with all of you. If you need a copy, I'm sure we can get that to you.
Okay. Great. I think our hour has passed very quickly, Vimla. I think there's a lot that we can explore further as well. And I think this is a start to say that, okay, let's create a space where we can explore some of the ways in which we can help ourselves and some of the methods and techniques that we could adopt so that it makes it easier for us, and normalize the whole thing around mental health, and
Absolutely.
remove that sense of stigma. And I think if anyone has a specific topic as well, or an element that you would like us to take up, do let us know, and maybe we can see we can draw on the resources within the community that can give their input and support us further. So it's about creating this space for ongoing learning and wellness together, because we're in it together, no matter who we are, where we're from. But we all need to develop the way to find a healthier way of being in these very strange and uncertain times. Okay, so I would now like to just end off with a short meditation. Okay, just so that we end this evening with a lovely positive feeling. Great. So I invite you to just sit comfortably upright and take in a deep breath. And as you breathe in, just taking that feeling of peace, of calm, tranquility. And as you breathe out, just allow yourself to release, let go. Just consciously feel yourself soaking and sinking into your chair. Feel your chair supporting your body totally. Feel the earth supporting you. And as we allow ourselves to relax completely, we enable ourselves to gently move inwards, away from the sounds around us, away from the thoughts of our day and our situations, and just go deeper within. Just feel that spot within yourself where there's a sense of quietness and peace within. The heart of our being, at the very core of our being, is a sacred space within, which is still, calm, peaceful, and untouched by the world. And irrespective of what happens around me, that at the core of my being, I am peace. At the core of my being, I am still. I am a light of consciousness. Holding this awareness, allow the self just to return to this pure feeling of stillness that I am, of the peace that I am. For this moment, let your thoughts recede and just focus your attention on being the stillness and peace that is at the heart of your being. Feel each breath connecting you with that stillness. And feel that stillness growing and filling your being. But beyond just your being, feel that stillness in every cell of your body. And even beyond your body, feel that stillness in the atmosphere, in the room in which you are. And just reconnect with this awareness that I am peace. I am stillness. I am light. Holding this awareness, feel the power of this awareness. As it radiates from deep within you into your inner world and your outer world. So return to this one thought. I am peace. I am light. Thank you. So I'd like to firstly just invite you to carry this feeling through with you, and just no matter what happens and no matter what the challenges we face, always just to come back to this one awareness that I am peace. And whatever awareness we hold, that then begins to become our world. So we have the power to recreate our world as we feel, as what we focus on. So thank you very much. And I'd like to say a big thank you to Vimla. Vimla, would you put your camera on again? And just to say, Vimla, thank you very much. I think it's been a very, very informative evening, and thank you for really just your time and your experience and your passion. I think that came through very clearly as well. And so thank you very much, Vimla. Thank you, and stay safe, everyone. Om Shanti.
Thank you.
A tiny flower breaks the stone, her roots connected far below. She drinks the power of the sun, a testament to anyone who's taken on what seems to be immovable, with faith to launch 1,000 stars, to ride a comet straight to Mars, when all oppose refuse to see, and say that it will never be. Collective mind and one belief, impossible. The quiet way unseen by eyes, who seek to shine a neon light. The gentle, strong, insistent flow of one who says they do not know, but understand and show in ways remarkable. I wish to swing out of the sea, to land inside this landscape me, a solitude of still repose and quiet concert there.